outstanding quality and taste to your kitchen. Shop La Familia 100% pure extra virgin olive oil at any leading supermarkets near you. La Familia, heart of the home.
Africa.
For too many communities across Africa and the world, access to clean water remains a dream. At Africa Muslims Agency, we dig deep, reaching into the heart of the earth to fill the cups of those in need. Sponsor a water well for 16,500 Rand, or a borehole in Afghanistan for 55,000 Rand, or Africa for 65,000 Rand, or any amount. With water comes food, health, education, and growth. An ongoing reward with Africa Muslims Agency.
Radio Al Ansar, Durban, 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg, 105.6 FM.
Listen to News in Focus on Radio Al Ansar, Durban 90.4 and Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM every Wednesday from 8 p.m. with Yunus Sacoor. That's 8 p.m. every Wednesday, Radio Al Ansar, keeping you informed.
खुदा ने मुझको दिया माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से मिला है जो भी मिला, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, जहाँ जहाँ भी गया दिल बिछाने लगे, जहाँ जहाँ भी गया दिल बिछाने लगे, ये है तेरा मेरा माँ तेरी दुआओं से, तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ की दुआ जन्नत की भाषा, माँ की दुआ जन्नत की जन्नत की हवा की दुआ जन्नत की हवा, ये कामयाबियां शोहरत कदम कदम पे मिली, ये कामयाबियां शोहरत कदम कदम पे मिली, नसीब ऐसा मिला माँ तेरी दुआओं से, तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, तवाफ मैंने किया की सही तवाफ मैंने किया की सही जो मैंने मेरा किया माँ तेरी دعاؤں سے تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے مجھے گرانے پہ حاسد تلے ہوئے تھے مگر مجھے گرانے پہ حاسد تلے ہوئے تھے مگر میں دشمنوں سے بچا ماں تیری دعاؤں سے تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے قسم ہے اس میں اجالے کا کچھ جمال نہیں قسم ہے اس میں اجالے کا کچھ جمال نہیں عروج اس کو ملا ماں تیری دعاؤں سے تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے ماں کی دعا جنت کی ہوا ماں کی دعا جنت کی ہوا ماں کی دعا جنت کی ہوا ماں کی دعا جنت کی ہوا.
This Azan is sponsored for the Isale Sawab of Marhum Muhammad Farooq Lateeb and all Marhumeen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them the highest abode in Jannah. Ameen.
أعزائي المستمعين، حان الآن موعد أذان العشاء لمدينة دربن وما حولها.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته وارزقنا شفاعته يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد.
This dua brought to you by Simplex Radio, South Africa's leading retailer of appliances, car sound and home theater systems.
This salah is proudly brought to you by Khan's Chemical Industry. May this salah enlighten your soul and bring about endless blessings throughout your day. This salah was proudly brought to you by Khan's Chemical Industry. May this salah enlighten your soul and bring about endless blessings throughout your day.
Having a clean, comfortable home is every homeowner's pride. That's why Khan's Chemicals have developed and manufactured prime yet affordable quality household brands Starlight, Miracle Mum, Exterminate and Angie to care for your home and family. With a wide range of fabric softeners, dishwashing liquids, bleaches and all-purpose cleaners, pine gels, bubble baths and much more, Khan's Chemicals ensures your home remains our number one priority. For sales and other inquiries, call 011 933 4021. Khan's Chemicals, cleaning your home the way you want.
At this time of trial and worry, the blessings of charity are the ideal means to avoid calamity and despair. The Al-Imdad Foundation gives you the opportunity to sponsor a share in a borehole in South Africa for just 1,000 Rand and provide what the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, called the best form of charity. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
This October, Tayo Raham in the sacred city of Taif embark on a life-changing Umrah group tour with World View Travel. Guided by renowned spiritual leader Maulana Muhammad Banker. Experience 2 nights in Taif, 4 nights in Mecca and 5 nights in Medina. Luxury hotels, daily breakfast, round-trip transfers, ziyarats, internal flights and visas. Call 031 001 7062 or 071 835 0216. Follow us at Worldview Travel. Worldview Travel creates memories to last a lifetime.
Do you have abayas, samiras, scarves, kitchenware, games, toys, furniture, or small appliances maybe that you're not using? Why not donate to Declutter? The Pietermaritzburg Muslim Women's Organization, together with the Al Ansar Foundation, are asking you to donate your unused but reusable items for their annual jumble sale. Drop off your item at Al Ansar offices at 207 West Road, Overport, or the Al Ansar offices in Pietermaritzburg at 240 Orkman Road. Drop-offs run until the 24th of November 2025. Let's get together and declutter for a cause. The jumble sale, making a difference in Pietermaritzburg.
Radio Al Ansar, Durban, 90.4 FM. Pietermaritzburg, 105.6 FM.
सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम तमन्ना है शहरों का सरदार देखो मदीना की गलियां वो बाजार देखो जहां भेज दी रब ने जन्नत बनाकर हबीबे खुदा का वो दरबार देखो तरसती हैं आँखें जिन्हें देखने को वो गुंबद वो जाले वो मीनार देखो गमों में गुजारी है ये जिंदगानी खुशी के वहाँ दिन मैं 2-4 देखूं.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another edition of News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM, and audio streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaba bikum. My name is Yunus Sacoor, and you will be in the company of my co-host this evening, Sumaya Khan, as well. We'll be in your company for the next 2 hours from after 8 now to about 10 past 10 or quarter past 10. We'll be interviewing our guest shortly. Today, the date is the 26th of November 2025, equivalent to the 5th of Jamadul Akhirah 1447. We're going to chat about the outcomes of the G20 summit that took place in the weekend. We know there's some very, very important decisions that were taken. We're going to look at some of the municipalities, the public participation, lack of controls, illegal connections of electricity and water. And this is impacting on the cost of services to the ratepayer. We can also discuss some of the community initiatives in the city of Msunduzi, Pietermaritzburg. We will be interviewing Anthony Waldhausen from an organization called Mark in Pietermaritzburg. They're quite active in that area. Hopefully Mark can give us some good news coming out of Msunduzi, because we know since they went into administration, there's been some serious service delivery problems. So Maritzburg listeners would be keen to catch up with what's happening in Pietermaritzburg. Later in the program, we're going to look at some of the economic indicators as a result of the G20 summit. I think there's a lot of positive sentiments coming out, from the G20 summit. We will be interviewing Imran Subrati. He's the MP and General Secretary of the United for Palestine later on in the show. But before we commence our discussion with Anthony Waldhausen, I'd like to welcome my co-host this evening, Sumaya Khan. Sumaya, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And you're becoming a household name in News in Focus nowadays.
Wa alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah.
No, it's nice to have you here backing me up. To speak for 2 hours sometimes becomes a challenge, but there are certain 2.5 hours sometimes, depending on our mood. But I think certain areas, you've been watching these things quite closely, particularly with the G20 summit. And I know you're going to raise a whole lot of questions with our guest, MP Imran Subrati. He's coming fresh from Parliament, and he can give us some up-to-date reports. But just before we interview our next guest, which is Anthony Waldhausen, perhaps you can sort of in few minutes just explain to us exactly what has happened, in a nutshell at the G20 summit. And later on in the program, we'll interview our guest.
Well, the common person doesn't really understand what's going on with the G Summit. So let's break it down for them. So before we dive into the G20, let's explain to our listeners why the G20 exists. So the G20 stands for Group of 20, a forum combining 19 major countries plus the European Union, and now the African Union as a permanent member. So its core purpose is to bring a mix of large, developed and emerging economic countries so that they can cooperate on global challenges that no single country can solve alone. Historically, if we go into the G20, it was elevated to include heads of state after 2008. Financial crisis, a movement to strengthen global economic governance and stability. So in short, G20 exists to coordinate policies amongst the world's major economics on economy, on finance, trade, development, and increasingly on cross-border issues like environment, technology, inequality, and global stability. So that basically tells us what it is. So one will find out what was so special about the 2025 G20 summit, because it was held in South Africa. When you think about it, it gave Africa a prominent voice in global policy making. And we as South Africans, for one of the very first times, South Africa's presidency was acknowledged, reflecting a shift towards inclusive growth, fairness, and long-term sustainability, solidarity, and equality. So the agenda, now we're going towards that. The summit emphasized bridging the gap between developed and developing economies, especially focusing on priorities relevant to the global South. So why we say the summit was different, first time in African soils, the summit was different. It wasn't just a routine meeting, but as potentially transformative summit that could reshape global economic governance. And that's the main thing what they are focusing on, with stronger representation for developing countries. So they focused on the main priorities and objectives of the G20 summit was the priority areas was inclusive economic growth, industrialization, employment, and reducing inequality. Also, we go to food security, climate finance and sustainable development, debt relief and financial fairness in developing economies. And this is absolutely vital. And digital transformation, innovation, and tech governance. So all the countries, the decision was we cannot work alone. We need to work together to uplift each other and support each other. We cannot work in isolation.
Thank you, Sumaya. That's just been a bit of a refresher or a preview to a discussion on the G20 summit. We'll go into more detail later on when we have our guest. But I've got, on live, on sort of telephone or on streaming, Anthony Walthausen. He's from the Msunduzi Association of Resident Civics, also known as MARC. Anthony, good evening and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International.
Hi, good evening and evening to your listeners.
Anthony, thanks very much for joining us. And, we interviewed you a long time ago. And how is Msunduzi doing? Are they improving in service delivery? Because we're hearing a lot of comments coming through with the lack of controls, illegal connection of electricity and water. Service delivery is at its all-time low. I had a report last week that at least at eThekwini is beginning to sort of improve in service delivery. How's it going in Msunduzi in Piembag?
Well, nothing much has changed since the last time we spoke, and I think the challenge we have mostly is the continuation of you have a lot of political interference from the politicians interfering with the work of the municipality staff. You have the high level of corruption, nepotism, and cargo deployment. We still have unqualified and unskilled people in senior management positions. So nothing much has actually changed. Despite us, we've been in administration twice, and from those interventions, we had interventions from KZN Copter to us provide support. We recently had the Premier intervene with regarding to having a working group to actually support and assist the municipality, which is actually chaired by Ravi Pillay. And then, of course, we have the MSC of Copter. We've actually instituted Section 106, which is a forensic investigation into the municipality. And also just recently, they also approached Dr. Mark Sutcliffe from eThekwini to also assist, but we're just concerned about all these interventions, but nothing comes out of it.
Now, it was thought that with the administration, with all these other interventions and Pillay Section 106 involved with the forensic investigations and Mike Sutcliffe, former city manager of eThekwini, being deployed to Piembag, that we probably would have seen some kind of improvements in service delivery, but you say there's not much improvement. So these interventions haven't made much difference in the Msunduzi municipality.
Not at all, because we're still continuing with them, the outages of water and electricity on a daily basis. It's very challenging for residents, like on a daily basis, every single day. Water or electricity is actually, we have a lot of outages of water and electricity. And again, this is stemming from the poor infrastructure that we have in the municipality.
You see, from my recollection back in the days, Piembag used to have, a world, state supply of water. In fact, the water in Pietermaritzburg used to be the best quality back in the days I'm talking about. Now the infrastructure is so badly neglected that, it is doubtful whether the people of Pietermaritzburg, would like to drink the tap water, but let alone that, basic service deliverables are not effective. So would you say that this is now as a result of the incompetent officials in Piembag, or maladministration and corruption is getting progressively worse?
It's all of those. It's just getting worse. And you, as I mentioned, you're having senior management that are actually not, I mean, they're all Kajit employees, most of them, and you're finding that they are not able to perform in these positions. One would actually think that as a senior manager or from the deputy municipal manager, one would have some form of project management skills and experience in that field, and unfortunately, it's not happening.
Now, Mark, I noted that you've done some case study in local government management, and you did some research, and you chose a very appropriate subject, which is basically public participation in municipalities. And you did a research to explore if this participation exists at the municipality, and you chose Msunduzi, as a case study. Now, can you probably just briefly highlight what was the purpose of the research project? Were you trying to establish, is this principle pertinent in Msunduzi and indeed other municipalities?
Well, I'm actually currently doing a 3-year diploma in local government management, and this was one of the stipulated projects I had to do as part of my credits. And so I had a wide range of things to actually do research on. So I chose public participation because it's close to what we are doing within the municipality, and we participate in much of the activities of the municipality. But my actual findings were that there's no public participation at not only in the Msunduzi municipality, but across the board in throughout municipalities in South Africa. So the whole aim of this project, the actual research, was to use Msunduzi municipality as a case study, and from that, I managed to do a sample of about 94 residents. We did an online questionnaire that was completed. I've also approached the 21 ward councillors because they're also closer to the people to complete the online questionnaire, and also engaged with the businesses as well, the municipal manager. But he never didn't pitch up and didn't respond to my actual request. And then, of course, I've interviewed the RDP manager, the manager in the Speaker's office. I've also interviewed Gauteng Cocta, as well as KZN Cocta, and then also a researcher from Human Sciences Research Council. So from my actual research, I found that because the municipality also has a policy around public participation, which is actually not actually implementable and is very vague. I also reviewed the section chapter 4 of the Municipal Systems Act, which actually speaks a lot about public participation, which even there that the municipality is not actually compliant of actually implementing the Municipal Systems Act. What I found was that a large amount of public, everything is great on paper, which exists on paper, but is not actually implementable. So what I found is from the residents, the response was that 94% of residents mentioned that the Msunduzi municipality does not take seriously into consideration all inputs, submissions and suggestions and needs service. I mean, I can just put that as an example for Mark. We've made numerous submissions on different topics, and for one, we've not been acknowledged. Secondly, we haven't, our submissions have not been responded to. 63% of residents mentioned that the ward councillor is not active in any public participation processes within their wards. And then 77% of the residents that completed the online questionnaire rated the municipality's commitment to public participation as very poor. So you can see from the actual the research that I did is that we found that a large amount of residents are very frustrated, and also made mention that the municipality is not actually actively involved in public participation. We have these consultations where they actually speak down to you, and they're not actually involving the all stakeholders in making as part of the decision-making processes, which is very poor and is actually needed. But what has come out from this research that I did is the actual recommendations that are actually identified. There was actually 11 recommendations that we made, and one of the highlights that came out there is from my interview with the Gauteng COPTA public participation unit, whereby they actually are piloting a concept which is called asset-based community development, which is a method of engaging with residents to identify what are the challenges in their wards, but also having them participate in coming up with solutions and including those into the RDP and budgeting processes. So there's something out there that can be implementable, especially in our municipalities. I've actually linked Gauteng COPTA with the KZN COPTA as well to see how can we also implement this and pilot it in KZN, and especially in our municipality in Msunduzi, but in all other municipalities in KZN.
Now, Anthony, some serious findings because gross violation of Chapter 4 of the Municipal Systems Act. They have an IDP and budget that needs to be approved, and if there's little or no consultation or public participation, then that's a gross violation again of the Municipal Systems Act. And the fact that employees are appointed with complying with the Municipal Structures Act, that in itself a violation. The fact that Piamberg Msunduzi has been in administration twice, and with all the interventions, little or nothing is happening. So can we summarize and say that there's little or no value for money for the ratepayers in Pietermaritzburg or in Msunduzi?
No, there's not. I mean, the thing is that we're still having the challenge of the poor revenue collection within the municipality as well too. And last week we actually were engaged with the National Council of Provinces. They actually came here last week for the whole week to do an oversight visit in KZN, and they actually came into Msunduzi municipality, engaged with all stakeholders. And this also gave us an opportunity to also engage with them to inform them about the challenges we experience as residents. We've also then made written submissions to them as well, and also members of MARC also managed to highlight some of the service delivery issues at that meeting, but also made written submissions afterwards, because you can voice your issues verbally at a public space, but it just gets lost and it's forgotten. But we've written to them and they've acknowledged our actual submission, and we are looking to follow up with them to ensure that they can probably investigate some of the things, submissions that we have made, to ensure that there's repercussions and that there is consequence management as well within the management of the municipality.
Anthony, why would residents in Pietermaritzburg or ratepayers will want to pay their rates if they're getting little or no service delivery? And this is why, the collection of, revenue for municipal service is becoming a problem, because are they embarrassed that they collecting rates and not providing the services?
No, that's correct. I mean, for example, we have endless problems with the refuse collection. Like, you always find on days that your refuse is supposed to be collected, but it's not being collected on the day. You've got to wait till 2 days or what afterwards to have your refuse collected. But each month you are paying for refuse collection, and this just shows you how the actual poor service delivery that we are getting in Msunduzi municipality.
So, basically you've done the research, and I appreciate that it's going to give you an indicator as to how the municipality should be improving. Now, in terms of the way forward or moving forward, I know for years you've been battling, councillors are never doing their work, and, they're not meeting with ratepayer associations. They're not meeting with members of their ward. All they're interested in is collecting their pay packets at the end of the month, sitting in City Hall, enjoying the lunches there during these council meetings. Officials are just, lackadaisical about performing their functions. Now, that's serious cause for concern with the ratepayers and residents of Piamberg, because, they getting these bills coming through, monthly for their rates charges. and here they're getting virtually little or no services. Now, I know municipal elections is just about a year away, and people are going to have to start making drastic changes in selecting appropriate councillors who can stand for elections. But from your perspective as an active civic organization, what are some of the key proposals that Mark makes to improve service delivery? I know you're looking at overhauling and drastic changes, but between now and the municipal elections, what would you envisage to be the way forward to really start beginning to see some changes and improvements in service delivery?
Well, I think one of them is that we really need to intensify residents to get more organized. As you know, Mark is a vehicle to be the voice of the residents, and we have about 14 civic associations under Mark, and we need to grow that throughout the city. But I think the focus will also be for next year's local government elections for us to really make the change and actually put all the political parties on the back burner, because we need to elect quality, and because if you look at the quality of the ward the councillors overall, we have poor quality of the councillors, and this is where we need to put pressure on political parties to ensure that they actually get candidates that are actually qualified, that are experienced. I mean, for example, Saga did an assessment of councillors in South Africa in 2021 throughout South Africa, and the assessment from that, we had 62% of councillors that cannot actually use a computer. Just recently, KZN Cognitive did a review of some of their councillors in KZN. 300 cannot read and write, and they got to approve budgets of billions of rands. So this is where we need to, as civic associations, civic and civil society, to put pressure on the actual political parties to ensure that we have quality councillors. Besides being qualified and experienced, they should understand how local government works and how to interpret the different acts, the Municipal Systems Act and things like that, so that we can get better services from them, but also to ensure that they can actually perform in council, because I mean, the quality of the current councillors we have it's a lot to be desired.
Now, Mark, just one final question. This has come up quite often in our discussions with ratepayer associations, and councillors obviously try to duck these interviews, including senior officials from the municipalities, because they're guilty. Now, these councillors indicate at their EXCO meetings and portfolio committee meetings that they give instructions to the head of departments through the city manager's office to prepare reports on service deliverables in the different wards. And very often they're given flowery reports, but there's nothing happening on the ground because these people are incompetent and corrupt. So how are you going to, in your mind, overhaul these officials that are lazy and incompetent?
Well, again, this is where we have to hold them accountable as well, too, as we actually reporting them to the actual municipal manager. If there's nothing been done at that level, we need to then escalate it to the actual embassy of COCTA. I mean, we have had a situation last year where one of the acting, there wasn't a due process about the acting of the municipal manager. So we've actually escalated that issue to the embassy of COCTA, and so what happened there is that the embassy of COCTA instructed the municipality, the council, to actually advertise the position of the acting municipal manager, because that whole process wasn't done properly. So this is one way that we can intervene, and this is where we can also hold the municipality accountable as well too, especially the municipal manager, because the buck stops with him. So we need to actually ensure that if we actually identify these things and we bring it up to the different departments to actually highlight these discrepancies and also the performances. And this is why we've actually taken part in the RDP process, so that we can monitor the performances of all the managers. so that we can then also highlight and also ensure that they're actually doing their jobs there and actually expose them as well too.
Anthony, I know, we got limited time, but my advice to you, based on the discussions I've had with various ratepayer associations throughout, KwaZulu-Natal, is that number one, you need political change, and you've got to start the process from now to ensure that you've got the right leaders from the different wards prepared to become councillors in local government elections. That's the first step. The second step is, once you've got a change in the political control of the municipalities, then you need to relook at the competency of the officials. And the question that arises, that how do you get rid of these officials? So you, like we said in the Tekwani, you're going to need a parallel process, and it may cost money to have a whole lot of competent officials appointed to take control of the municipalities and keep these officials on the side until you can remove them into other sections of the municipality. I think you're going to have to mobilize as ratepayers leading to local government elections next year to really make a change, because from what I'm hearing from you, a lot of interventions have been made, a lot of noises have been raised, but very little or no change, because the political powers of be there are basically just enjoying the perks of the job and then, have a political agenda with little or no interest on service delivery. So my advice is for you to work closely with other ratepayer associations, mobilize and try to make that change, so ultimately you can look at more competent officials improving service delivery in Msunduzi. Do you agree with me, Mike, Anthony?
Yes, I do agree with that. And also what we've done as well as part of MARC, we've actually, the Minister of COCTA has actually put out a paper on the review of the white paper on local government, and we've made submissions to that, and which means that we are looking at wanting to overhaul local government completely, which we've made as quite a number of actually recommendations on how to do that. So I think that is one way where we can include that. And also recently there's been the professionalization framework of the public service. That needs to be also implemented, and we will be pushing for that as well too, to have the professionalization of all officials at local government level. So, and also about ensuring that we as public are part of the decision-making processes of selecting future management at the municipalities.
Anthony, thanks very much for joining us. A very fruitful interview. I'm sure the next time we interview you, we will have some good news coming from Piamberg. I had one of the MPs just walking into the studio now, and I'm gonna question him what's happening at the national level, dealing with. I know our president did talk about improving service delivery in local governments, and something drastic needs to be done. But catch a listen to our show, and we will cover some of those aspects, including the G20. But I must thank you for joining us, and do continue with the good work in Piamberg. And we hope that in not too a distant future, the potholes will be repaired in Piamberg, and all your stormwater drains and blockages, etc., you will have people attending to it. But thank you very much for joining us, Anthony.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, that was Anthony Walthausen, the CEO of an organization called MARC. On that note, we'll take a break, a nasheed break. There's been a lot of requests for some nasheeds, and inshallah we'll continue our discussion after the break.
Every day, thousands go to bed hungry, but you can change that. With just 10 Rand, you can provide a loaf of bread. This bread is more than just a donation, it is a lifeline for so many families in need. Be part of the Al Ansar Outreach Slice of Life drive today. Call Outreach on 031-208-1601 and make a difference, one loaf at a time.
Welcome to Simplex Radio. Visit our showroom for the full range of car audio. Our TV department carries top brands with quality LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theater rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha, and more for quality audio visual experience. Now available, full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031 306 4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Brickfield Road, Overport. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
Get ready to elevate your fitness game at First Fitness in Durban's Berea. With a spacious free weight area, award-winning equipment, and exclusive ladies-only parking and training level, we've got everything you need to crush your goals. Hit the ground running on our outdoor track or unleash your inner warrior in our MMA and boxing dungeon. Plus, enjoy high security and ample parking. And don't forget to refuel at our halal coffee and health restaurant for the best in coffees, smoothies, and healthy eats. Join us today and redefine your fitness journey. First Fitness, dare to be extraordinary.
Radio Al Ansar welcomes your feedback. If you have a broadcasting-related complaint, please put it in writing and address it to the head of the complaints committee. Include your full name, contact details, a clear description of your complaint, and any supporting documents. You can email your complaint to feedback@alansar.org.za. That's feedback@alansar.org.za. Or bring it in person to our Pietermaritzburg office at 240 Ortman Road, Willowton. Your input helps us serve you better.
The Debonair's Pizza Real Deal is bringing to you 6 amazing flavors from just R31.90. Perfect for a lunch fix between errands or a cozy moment with the family. Join me, Phoebe Aminafili, on Saturday, the 6th of December from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. for our live broadcast at Debonair's Pizza North Beach, 139 Lower Marine Parade Street, where all the flavors and prices are waiting for you. Debonair's Pizza. Try something amazing.
This segment is brought to you by Kenfield Auto, your RMI approved service and repair specialist. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Kenfield Auto.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا وأدخلهم جنات عدن التي وعدتهم ومن صلح من آبائهم وأزواجهم وذرياتهم إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم وقهم السيئات ومن تق السيئات يومئذ فقد رحمته وذلك هو الفوز العظيم.
Car won't start?
Kenfield Auto.
Noisy brakes?
Kenfield Auto.
Due for a service?
Kenfield Auto. Kenfield Auto, the answer to all your car problems. Your service and repair specialist for your VW, Audi, Suzuki, Toyota, or just about any vehicle. Kenfield Auto, your RMI and insurance approved workshop to handle them all. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Call us on 031 207 2399. Kenfield Auto.
Ya Rasool Allah, Ya Habib Allah, Aka, 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 Aka. फिर के गली गली तबाह ठोकर सब की खाए क्यों दिल को जो अक्ल दे खुदा तेरी गली से जाए क्यों रुखसात का फिदा कशान गश से हमें उठाए क्यों रुखसात का फिदा कशान गश से हमें उठाए क्यों सोते हैं उनके साए में सोते हैं उनके साए में कोई हमें जगाए क्यों फिर के دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں یاد حضور کی قسم غفلت عیش ہے ستم یاد حضور کی قسم غفلت عیش ہے ستم خوب ہے قید غم میں غم خوب ہے قید غم میں غم کوئی ہمیں چھڑائے کیوں وہ جو نہ تھے تو کچھ نہ تھا وہ جو نہ ہو تو کچھ نہ ہو وہ جو نہ تھے تو کچھ نہ تھا وہ جو نہ ہو تو کچھ نہ ہو جان ہے وہ جہان کی جان ہے وہ جہان کی جان ہے تو جہان غیر کا دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں ہاں جان عشق مصطفیٰ روز فزوں کرے خدا جان ہے عشق مصطفیٰ روز فزوں کرے خدا جس کو درد کا مزہ جس کو درد کا مزہ سانسے دوا اٹھائے کیوں پھر کے دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں ہے تو رضا میرا ستم جرم پہ گئے لجائے ہم ہے تو رضا میرا ستم جرم پہ گئے لجائے ہم کوئی بجائے سو سے غم کوئی بجائے سو سے غم سازے طرب بجائے کیوں یا رسول اللہ
An informative Islamic global perspective. This is Al Ansar News.
Making news this hour, 26th of November, the news from Durban 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM. Minister John Steenhuisen announces aggressive new foot and mouth disease strategy, America Monina. The government is rolling out an aggressive new vaccination program towards a damaging wave of foot and mouth disease. Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen says they are preparing to deploy 2 million more vaccine doses early next year, which will start with the hardest-stricken provinces, KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng, the Free State, Mpumalanga, and the Northwest. Steenhuisen says a surge in new infections in KwaZulu-Natal has forced the government to escalate its response, warning that South Africa is not winning the battle against the disease. KwaZulu-Natal remains the epicenter, recording 180 of the country's 274 unresolved cases despite months of vaccination. Officials say uncontrolled animal movement is driving new infections, with recent flare-ups in Kokstad and Escort. Steenhuisen says that South Africa is also working to reduce its reliance on imported vaccines by expanding local manufacturing capacity. He says that, however, the crisis will persist unless animal movement laws are enforced, calling it the single biggest threat to containment. More news. Vusi Muzikat Matlala is giving evidence at the ad hoc committee today. He was meant to testify yesterday, but asked for a postponement, saying he was not feeling well. The ad hoc committee is sitting at the Kosi-Mampuru Correctional Center in Pretoria. Matlala, who is accused of attempted murder, is also linked to questionable tender dealings. He has also been named as a member of the Big Five criminal cartel allegedly operating in Gauteng. However, he's been asked about alleged money he had paid to former Minister Bekele. He has this to say.
You said I made an initial payment of 300,000 in cash to former Minister Bekele at my residence in Pretoria around January. Is that January 2025? Yes. I handed over the money while he was inside my apartment. This was after he told me they needed gratification, which he called a quote-unquote facilitation fee, related to his role in returning my firearms and stopping the harassment. He also implied that he was not acting alone, which explained why a large sum of money was required. Yes. So that's the first payment. Yes, that's correct. And that was in your apartment here in Pretoria. Yes, that's correct. Then you say you made a second cash payment around about March 2025 at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Yes.
Back in KwaZulu-Natal. KwaZulu-Natal Tourism MEC Musa Zondi says over 1.3 million visitors are expected to flock to Durban this festive season. Zondi launched the province's summer tourism campaign in the Midlands yesterday. He said between January and May this year, Durban recorded more than 2.8 million domestic trips and 186,000 international visitors, which injected over 5 billion rands into the local economy. Zondi said that the visitors and locals will be well protected this season, especially with the rollout of South Africa's first dedicated coastal and tourism policing unit, now patrolling over 100 kilometers of beaches and visitor zones. Finally, international story. A United Nations report says the economy of the West Bank is facing its most severe collapse to date, which it blames on the ongoing restrictions on movement and trade imposed by Israel in the occupied territory. Published by the UN Conference on Trade and Development on the 24th of November, the analysis revealed that the territory's economy has suffered one of the 10 worst global collapses since 1960 due to 2 years of Israeli military assault and systemic restrictions. According to the report, Gaza's GDP plummeted by 83% in 2024 compared to the previous year, resulting in an 87% contraction over 2 years. It also left the blockaded territory with a GDP of just $362 million, and it placed it among the poorest regions in the world. Your weather at 23 degrees. A quick reminder of our top story. The government is rolling out an aggressive new vaccination program towards a damaging wave of foot and mouth disease. Reports says the epicenter of the disease is in KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng, the Free States, Northwest, and Mpumalanga. That's the news.
Elevate your style with Al-Noor kurtas and fragrances from Potent Ice Perfumes, exclusively available at Al-Ansar shop. Visit us at 207 West Road or call 031-208-1601. Experience the best in fashion and perfumery. Al-Ansar shop where elegance meets fragrance.
One child, one dream.
A journey with Africa Muslims Agency that began 3 years ago has changed the lives of Syrian and Palestinian refugee children beyond their dreams. Help them to continue their education by sponsoring a student at the Amman School of Excellence in Lebanon for 25,200 Rand per year. Education at Amman can provide a brighter future for refugee families.
AMA, empowering, educating, inspiring.
اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين على أرض فلسطين. اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين على أرض فلسطين. اللهم حرر المسجد الأقصى من اليهود الغاصبين. اللهم انصر إخواننا المرابطين على أرض فلسطين. اللهم شد أزرهم وسدد رميهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم الطف بإخواننا في كل مكان يذكر فيه اسمك يا أرحم الراحمين. استنصروك يا الله فانصرهم. اللهم ارحم الضعفاء والفقراء والمساكين والأيتام والنازحين والمشردين والأسرى يا أرحم الراحمين.
اللهم أنج المستضعفين من المسلمين في فلسطين. اللهم كن لهم عونا ونصيرا. اللهم كن لإخواننا المرابطين في المسجد الأقصى. اللهم كن لهم ولا تكن عليهم. اللهم فرج همهم، نفذ كربهم، داوي جرحاهم، عاف مبتلاهم، اشف مرضاهم، ارحم موتاهم، تقبل شهداءهم.
Listen to News in Focus on Radio Al-Ansar, Durban 90.4 and Petermarisburg 105.6 FM every Wednesday from 8 p.m. with Yunus Sacoor. That's 8 p.m. every Wednesday, Radio Al-Ansar, keeping you informed.
صلى الله عليه वसल्लम तमन्ना है शहरों का सरदार देखो मदीना की गलियां वो बाजार देखो जहां भेज दी रब ने जन्नत बनाकर हबीबे खुदा का वो दरबार देखो तरसती हैं आँखें जिन्हें देखने को वो गुंबद वो जाली वो मीनार देखो गमों में गुजारी है ये जिंदगानी खुशी के वहाँ दिन मैं दो चार देखूं.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus, live on Radio Al-Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Petermarisburg 105.6 FM, and streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Before the news and the Nasheed break, we were interviewing Anthony Walthausen, Msunduzi Association of Resident Civics. He gave us an overview of the situation in Msunduzi, some really concerning problems in that municipality and indeed other municipalities. So with us live in the studio, we have a Member of Parliament and General Secretary of United for Palestine, Honorary Imran Subrati. Imran, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Al-Ansar in our studio this evening.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yunus, it's so nice to be here with you after such a long time. It's also nice to see your co-host Sumaya Khan after a very long time.
Yes, Sumaya is becoming a household name in News in Focus, and as an educator and as a host of School Matters, as well as another program called Youth Frequency, she's also delighted to be part of the panel in News in Focus dealing with specific issues relating to Palestine, both last week and in previous weeks. But today she wants to talk about the outcomes of the G20 summit. And obviously, Imran, you've been part of the process, from your perspective, and obviously it's breaking ground for South Africa. But the USA not being present is also cause for concern. And there was a low profile handing over of the G20 summit for next year to some of the officials of USA. But there are clear indicators that Africa wants to, make itself prominent in the world market. So what I want to do is hand over the interview to Sumaya Khan on the G20 summit. Sumaya, you can proceed.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Imran.
Wa alaikum salam, Sumaya.
Jazakallah for being in studio with us.
No, it's such a pleasure. It's such a pleasure, Sumaya.
You're really, really busy. Before you could come, we discussed what is the G20, why there was a need. We broke it down for the listeners. Now we're going to be diving straight into the major outcomes and, the agreements of the G20 summit. So what would you say is the significance of South Africa having hosted the G20 summit, especially in African soils? Did South Africa and South Africans benefit from the G20, or was it only for the elite, the rich, the corporate, the business, basically the common man?
Yeah, so thanks, Sumaya. And I think first and foremost, it's important for us to understand the context of the G20. The G20, as you've indicated, you've given some history, but I think for me to answer your question, your listeners will have to understand that the G20 officially started in 2008. And 2025, South Africa will be the last of the G20 countries. Of all the list of countries as a founding member of the G20 that's hosting it, I think that's significant, which means that it's gone a full circle. Every other country of the G20 countries from 2008 to 2025, 2024 would have hosted it. And South Africa is the last of that country before it now goes back to the USA, which is country one, which hosted it in 2008 in Washington, D.C., pursuant and subsequent to the massive crisis that took place, a global crisis that took place in 2008 in America, where the property market burst. Now, the reason I'm saying that, and probably then if you do the maths, you would come to 18. From 2008 to now it's 18. You may ask the question, what about the other two? It's G20. And I think it's important for me to inform and educate the audience because, ordinary people don't understand it. And I think it's important as a politician, I've learned to simplify and educate people. It's not about using the shows to corner the politician or to talk. It's about educating, informing people so that when they understand G20, what is it, they're better informed. So there's 18 countries. Who are the other two? The other two that have a seat at the table is the European Union and since 2023, African Union. And it's because of South Africa's presence that South Africa, has ensured that the African Union since 2023 becomes a member of the African Union. So I think that was important context I thought I'd give. So South Africa being the last of the G20 countries to be the president, what's unique about it, it's the first time that it's being hosted or was hosted in an African continent. So that's the first thing. The second important element to understand, it is the fourth presidency in a sequence of what we call Global South presidencies. And we must educate our audiences is what is Global South. Global South, as South would suggest, is largely countries on the south of the equator, but largely countries who are developing countries. Countries who have a developmental agenda that have issues of poverty and the kind of challenges we would have. So who are those four countries that we are the fourth of in succession? In 2022, it was Indonesia. So you can do the geography where Indonesia is. In 2023, it was India. And India had
come up with what they call the digital public infrastructure. They really focused on that, and that's now taken. It was part of like what we have brought to the party. India highlighted the need for digitization around the world. And maybe what was amazing about what they did, Yunus, was India has a population of 1 billion people. And when COVID-19 occurred, they had a problem in that they were unable to find the social benefits reaching this 1 billion people. They couldn't identify people because so many people. So they developed what we call the Aadhaar system, or the digital identification system. And they managed to then get 1 billion people connected to digital ID and ensure that the social security or the social grants reaches the people. So that was a significant achievement. So when they hosted the 2023 presidency, that became a huge talking point. In fact, last year, I was in India in April, of this year, to actually understand how they're doing it, because it's part of my portfolio of communication. So that was 2023. In 2024, again, we're staying south, we went to Brazil. Again, adding to the agenda of developing countries. And South Africa is the 4th country in succession of the global south that continued to advance the agenda of the global south. And more importantly, what's important, Sumaya, is we then carried the responsibility of two things. One is continuing what the predecessors have done, and more importantly, advancing the unique challenges that Africa faces, the challenges of sustainability, the challenges of poverty, the challenges of unemployment, the challenges of an unsustainable debt. We all know, like our economist is here, he always tells us what a significant percentage of our budget goes towards servicing the debt only, the interest debt. And other African countries are even worse than us. They just don't have. So what was important for us and significant is we were the first African country, the last in the series of the G20 countries, the first African country, and we carried this mantle of responsibility of ensuring that when we conclude, we ensure that Africa and the needs of Africa are high and top on the light of the declaration. So I think that's very important. And maybe the last point to make, so that everybody gets a picture, it now goes back to America, and maybe we'll have that conversation later. America was the first president of the G20. 2026, it goes back to America.
Do you know, the major outcomes and agreements of the G20 summit reaffirmed commitment in multilateral cooperation. Depth and relief was highlighted quite often, sustainability and financial support for vulnerable economies, as you just mentioned. They also spoke, one of the also main agreements were clean energy transition, climate action, and sustainable development, and focus on inclusive growth, food security, and social welfare. This was really important. What were, when you're going into it, what were some of the key outcomes and declarations, as you mentioned, makes this G20 summit so different from the others?
I think what's important is for us to understand that under our presidency, we centered the entire theme around solidarity, around equality, and around sustainability. Solidarity with who? If you look at the very first preamble, before I come to answer your question specifically, it was really, alhamdulillah, we heard Palestine being mentioned there. Amongst the declarations in the preambles was ensuring that the people of Sudan, the people of Palestine, the people of Democratic Republic of Congo, and I think there was the 4th country as well that was mentioned by name. Now, you would have never seen this. You would have never seen such a declaration had it been drafted by a North country that was the presidency. You would only see it because it was drafted by South Africa as the presidency. And I think that's very, very critical for us to understand. And as the question that you ask, and I think you've enlisted quite a few of them, and maybe I'm just going to open the 32 I mean, it's a long declaration, and it's well worthy for everyone to listen to. So I think the first thing is we spoke about solidarity, equality, and sustainability. If you look at solidarity with the oppressed people, solidarity, they've spoken about terrorism, they've spoken about the unalienable rights of people to their land and being unable to take away our people's land. There was an entire preamble that spoke to this entire issue of solidarity, and I think that must not be underscored before we go to Africa. I think if we start off to some of the preambles that they would have mentioned, it says that for the first time, and the other thing we must celebrate, really. I mean, when it's such a euphoric feeling, because Alhamdulillah, I've walked this journey since my induction as an MP in 2024. Because the first things we started asking people was, remember, the handover was taking place in November 2024 in Brazil, and we were already in our portfolio committees. So this was not something that took place this weekend. No, there was an entire build-up last year where we as Parliament were preparing that, listen, this whole G20 is coming. What is this G20? How is it going to benefit us? How does each portfolio committee representing the interests of South Africa then extract value? And as South Africa, when this wave comes and it recedes and it's gone, how has it benefited us? Well, how have we been enriched? This was the conversation, Sumaya and Yunus. It's not something that's taken, it's something that started last year in July when we became MPs. We asked the question, how does it affect ordinary South Africans? It can't be an occasion where just the elite and those who are getting tickets to these high-flying events will benefit. How does it benefit the ordinary South Africans? We asked these critical questions. We actually held oversight and accountability. I recall I have oversight over the presidency. I have oversight in communications and digital technologies. And communication, the digital technologies, is one of the portfolios and one of the declarations that's very, very strong. And maybe I should pause to point out to your listeners that, and I've argued this in Parliament, that after the colonization of land, the second most colonized space is the digital space. Our land was taken openly and brazenly from us. It was occupied, and we know there's an imbalance and inequality of land around Africa. But if you look at the digital space in Africa and in South Africa, the digital space is in the internet. All our data, the ownership of all massive digital companies is all owned by other than historically disadvantaged individuals. Africa is colonized in the digital space. We have only become consumers and not creators. So one of the areas you'll find that the G20 declaration speaks of, it highlights the impetus and the impact of digitization as an opportunity to unlock opportunities. And it is my hope, and it should be our hope, that as we challenge the status quo to ensure that historically disadvantaged, I mean, the simple question we must ask ourselves, who owns all the digital space around the world? Who owns all the telcos? Who owns all these fancy internet companies? Who owns all the OTTs, the Facebook? I mean, you would be shocked to know it's called OTT, over the top. I always say it's like a fisherman. You know, you go and you want to catch a fish, you stand at the shore, you throw your line over the water into the ocean, and you catch a fish without swimming in. So similarly, all these OTTs, Facebook, Netflix, and the like, they're not regulated in the country, but they use our network, our internet network. They sell to our consumers. They make fortunes about us. They're unregulated. And it's something in our portfolio we are seized with. The reason I'm saying this, Sumaya, you asked me a question about how does it affect Africa. To me, because I serve in this portfolio committee, one of the most digital colonized spaces of the land is the digital space. And I think it's conversation, maybe, Yunus, we should bring to the discussion of here. So it is our hope that the digital space, in terms of ownership, in terms of control, in terms of unlocking the digital opportunities, we all know I mean, if you use AI and AI featured, I mean, you asked me amongst the things AI featured there. One of the areas we are seized with as a country is the ethical use of AI. And you know, people say, oh, but AI is going to displace me. I mean, recently one of my colleagues shared a post about in UK about a large UK firm retrenching or reducing its staff size because it's now found AI as an alternative, and people are concerned about that. And we as South Africans and as Africa should be concerned. If we already have an unemployment problem, can you imagine how further exacerbated it will become if AI takes over the workplace? So I think it's something that we as a country are seized with. How then do you regulate AI to ensure there's a responsible use of it? I mean, some of the other areas, and I was trying to find the one relating to where. Yes, it says here, we concur. I mean, one of the point 6 of it says we condemn all forms. We condemn terrorism in all forms and manifestation. And then it goes on to say, we concur that guided by the purposes and principles of the UN Charter in its entirety, we will work for a just, comprehensive and lasting peace in Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, the occupied Palestinian territory, Ukraine, as well as ending other conflicts and wars around the globe. Only peace will be achieved sustainability and prosperity. And the reason I'm saying this, and thereafter it goes into specific subheadings such as strengthening disaster resilience, and I'll talk about that. And the reason I'm saying this, I would never imagine next year it's going to America. And I challenge ourselves to next year pull out the declarations that's going to come out of Washington, D.C., and let's compare it with here. I don't think these countries, at least Palestine and these countries, would be mentioned, because this is something that's close to the heart. And another important aspect, and this I love, it's almost as if, Sumaya, I mean, it's not almost, it was written in Africa, and it has the African theme of Ubuntu. You know, maybe our colors, listening, they say, what is saying Ubuntu and Zulu word? What does Ubuntu mean? And the entire declaration, in fact, Africa is mentioned. You know how many times? Who wants to guess in this declaration? I stand to correction, but at least 80 times Africa is mentioned in this declaration. So it is an African declaration premised on the principle of Ubuntu. And what is Ubuntu? Ubuntu translates to I am because we are. And so what happens here, because all these signatories to this declaration, and another thing that comes to mind, unorthodox President Cyril Ramaphosa varied from the other G20s, and this declaration was adopted in day one. Not usually the declarations are adopted in day two. It was adopted in day one. And it's premised on the principle of Ubuntu. Now, you may ask, Imran, how does Ubuntu apply here? What the northern countries are agreeing, that no matter who we are, we may be wealthy, we may be successful, but we are because I am because we are. We are part of this global economy. And maybe another point why I'm saying this is amazing and my eyes really tinkle up. If you look at the global south, and why are we at a precipice, at a crest of change in history? We and the economists will tell you this. The global south has the largest number of consumers. The largest number of consumers. For example, I mentioned digital. I mentioned digitization. How many in Africa, in global south, have digital connectivity, have internet, have AI, have fancy technology? Not everybody. It's an unsaturated market. It's waiting to be nourished. It's waiting to be sold to. It's a developing market in every aspect, in technology, in every industry, in AI. And the global north is already saturated. So the question asks is, where do the consumers lie? Where are the customers? The customers are here. So I think what's important is the global north realizes they are part of this global community, and they've embraced that throughout the spirit of Ubuntu, and they acknowledge this point of view. And then they go on to address, for example, subheading first. The first of these things that are talking to equality, solidarity, equality is strengthen disaster resilience and response.
Well, interesting facts, Brother Imran. You are explaining it to the simple person who's listening right now because, as you mentioned, the Kalas are questioning what's Ubuntu. Right now, they're going to tell their grandchildren and their children what is the G20. And this is the whole idea Mr. Sacoor is doing News in Focus, because normally you have political shows and shows focusing about news around the world. The language, the manner in which it's done, it's boring. We don't understand.
Absolutely.
So you did a whole entire lesson, and Alhamdulillah. We'll be taking a short ad break and we will continue.
We'd love to meet you. Pay us a visit. Radio Al-Ansar.
Durban Halal Meats, the butcher with a twist. Whether you're firing up the braai or stocking up for your business, we've got you covered. From premium lamb, beef and chicken to custom cuts and bulk orders, all 100% halal certified by Sanha. Enjoy our convenient buy and braai service, fast delivery and easy online ordering at durbanhalalmeats.co.za. Visit us at 84 Felix Dlamini Road, Durban Halal Meats. Quality, affordability, trust, meat made better.
Black November is here and Bowers Furnishers is dropping the deal of the year. Get the ultimate bedroom combo for just $3,999. That's a double bed, headboard, blanket box, wardrobe, blanket, 2 pillows, 2 nightstands, and 2 3-tier bookshelves. Everything you need to transform your room all in one unbeatable bundle. But hurry, at $3,999, this Black November combo won't stay in stock for long. Visit Bowers Furnishers in-store or online. Black November savings you can't afford to miss.
Do you have abayas, samiras, scarves, kitchenware, games, toys, furniture, or small appliances maybe that you're not using? Why not donate to Declutter? The Pietermaritzburg Muslim Women's Organization, together with the Al-Ansar Foundation, are asking you to donate your unused but reusable items for their annual jumble sale. Drop off your item at Al-Ansar offices at 207 West Road, Overport, or the Al-Ansar offices in Pietermaritzburg at 240 Orkman Road. Drop-offs run until the 24th of November 2025. Let's get together and declutter for a cause. The jumble sale making a difference in Pietermaritzburg.
Plan your dream holiday with the specialist, World of Travel, as we pride ourselves in offering you the best in Hajj and Umrah. We also offer travel packages to the Middle East, Far East, and many more exotic destinations. Call our professional travel consultants now on 031 20 888 77 or view our website www.worldoftravel.co.za. Visit us at 44 Crescent Street as memorable journeys begin with World of Travel by Irshad Malik.
It's back. Simplex Radio's Black November sale. Bigger and better. Get your hands on the Samsung 70-inch LED TV at only $9,999, saving a massive 3,000 Rand. Plus, we'll throw in a free soundbar.
Save 2,000 Rand on the Sinotech 65-inch LED TV at only 5,999.
Sinotech 32-inch LED TV now at a bargain price of just 1,699.
And get the Hisense 43-inch full HD Smart TV at a low of 3,499.
Deals are limited. Simplex Radio,
the name you can trust.
The Debonair's Pizza Real Deal is bringing to you 6 amazing flavors from just R31.90. Perfect for a lunch fix between errands or a cozy moment with the family. Join me, Bibi Aminafili, on Saturday, the 6th of December from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. for our live broadcast at Debonair's Pizza North Beach, 139 Lower Marine Parade Street, where all the flavors and prices are waiting for you. Debonair's Pizza. Try something amazing.
Allah, 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 Allah,
तन्हा हूँ मैं और इम्तिहान लाखों तने हैं सामने बैठा हूँ मैं मायूस कुन आए ना कोई मुझे थामने अल्लाह अल्लाह तू मेरी सुन ले सदा الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير معیوب ہوں تیرا کرم پردہ رکھا عزت بھی دی بڑھ کے دیا اوقات سے دولت بھی طاقت بھی اور وقت بھی کر دے خطا ہر معاف تو فہرست اسیاں کو چھوڑ دے اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا حسبنا اللہ ونعم الوکیل حسبنا اللہ ونعم الوکیل حسبنا اللہ ونعم الوکیل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير رنگینیوں خود غرضیوں میں ہے گزاری یہ عمر ہے آرزو بس کہ یہی کر دوں تیرے نام شام و سحر تسکین دل حاصل کروں رخ اپنی جانب تو موڑ دے اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير لب پہ رہے ذکر و دعا اور تجھ سے میں ڈرتا رہوں کر کے عمل قرآن پہ جنت کی راہوں پہ چلتا رہوں خدمت کروں اسلام کی پچھتاوے کا غم توڑ دے اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير روتا رہا سجدوں میں جو دل میں لیے امت کا غم پڑھتا رہوں میں تو فتن اپنے نبی پہ درود ہر قدم ہو روح جب تن سے جدا جنت کی جانب چلے دوڑ کر اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير
Listen to News in Focus on Radio Al-Ansar, Durban 90.4 and Petermarisburg 105.6 FM every Wednesday from 8 p.m. with Yunus Sacoor. That's 8 p.m. every Wednesday, Radio Al-Ansar. keeping you informed.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus live on Radio Al-Ansar International on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM, and streaming on www.alansar.org.za. The News in Focus program updates you on topical news, breaking news. We also entertain you with some melodious nasheeds just to break the rhythm of too much of talking. Before the news break, Sumaya Khan was chatting with MP Imran Subrati, who gave us an overview of the G20 summit, simplified it to the level of our Kalas back home understanding. And I understand there's a lot of Kalas that listen to this program, and you welcome, and I really appreciate just to sort of break the discussion. One listener, wrote to us last week complaining that her account was in the region of 300,000. Shada Bibi, she says that I'm pleased to report that the account has been brought down to 83,000. In my opinion, that's extremely high as well. And those names that we gave her, she need to take it back to those councillors, and hopefully she can bring that amount to a realistic amount, because I don't believe that she should be paying such a high water account. So obviously, somewhere along the line, something is wrong. But we're trying to get the municipalities, to come to our halls sooner rather than later and assist people with these type of problems. And Sister Farida mentioned that, excellent information is emanating from our programs. And I'm sure that, the topics that we are selecting is topical, and it's brought down to a basic level of understanding, because this is what's life all about. We have to give people information that they benefit from. We're just going to sort of deviate slightly from the, outcomes of the G20 summit to some of the financial outcomes of the G20 summit. But before that, the petrol price suddenly went up, and the rand is doing fairly well. The financial indicators are extremely good, but I presume maybe there's been some impact in terms of the oil prices. I'd like to welcome our regular economist and asset manager, Hassan Mutala. Hassan, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Hassan, Imran just gave us a bit of a highlight on exactly what, some of the key outcomes of the G20 summit, and the fact that a lot of outcomes were linked to Africa. I know that the president of Burkina Faso had something to say about the different leaders of South Africa, Traore, and the fact that they don't want to have a united Africa, and this is probably because of financial sort of benefits from the West. But perhaps you just want to give us some kind of indicators as to what impact this summit had on the financial setup worldwide and indeed in Africa.
Sure. I think Imran obviously highlighted many of the outcomes that was noted, but I think just a couple of key ones. One of the key issues faced globally, and particularly from an African perspective, is the fact that debt remains a big challenge and a constraint to many African economies in particular. And one of the things South Africa focused on and tried to push, remember, we must put this into perspective and understand it from history. This is the first time G20 has taken place on African soil. If you look at all the G20s that have taken place historically, the agendas were very different to what the agenda was placed in this forum. And important point to note was that South Africa, being part of Africa, pushed through an African agenda to a large extent, where if you look at the outcome statements, they say Africa is mentioned in that document more than 20 times. It's the first time ever that you've had it in the last 18 years that the G20 has been around. So important point is that Africa became a focal point, and they were included and incorporated in terms of what needs to be done and outcomes. And obviously, there's no legally binding things that takes place, and it needs to be still driven and it needs to be focused on. But firstly, the one of the key drivers was try and provide debt relief or debt restructuring for African countries, in particular those that are distressed, going forward. So to allow African countries to start to prosper and to grow, because debt is a major hamper in terms, we talked about in South Africa how 21 cents of our budget goes towards it. In many African countries, is even much more than that. And it's a huge constraint for many of them. So to try and debt restructure and to give some debt relief. But there was no legal binding or agreement on that, but at least they've tried to address it and bring it forward to take going forward as well. Second point to highlight is the focus around climate and energy. Now, developing worlds in particular, they're still growing. So there will be an outcome or a focus on still utilizing fossil fuels. So the likes of, we use, for example, when we're putting our petrol, we're using diesel and petrol fuel in most of the time. But if you look at the Western countries, particularly Europe and in certain Asian countries, there's a big, and including China now, there's a big focus towards going to alternative energy. So whether it's electric cars, electric vehicles, and alternative type, there's a big focus on that in terms of climate change. So the transition to move, especially for developing countries like ourselves and majority of Africa and places like South America and India, those places, to transition from fossil to that, it's an expensive transition. To set up a wind-powered plant and a nuclear power plant, those cost billions and billions of rands and dollars to do that. Now, one of the outcomes here is that there must be some, firstly, structured and a phased approach to it. But secondly, there must be some sort of funding provided to that so that you can allow developing countries to move towards that over time as well. I think another third point to highlight, and especially with what's happening with Trump over the last year around the trade tariffs and those outcomes. So there was a key focus around plan to sort of ensure that global supply chains and trade, there's sustainability and there's a bit of cooperation and diversification that takes place. Remember, with Trump, as soon as he came in and earlier this year, he was just coming and imposing tariffs left, right, and center, and then making deals after that to try and get some benefit from countries and then reducing the tariffs. Currently, South Africa is still imposed with 30%. India's got 50% tariffs on some of their products. Brazil had also massive amount of tariffs, but now slowly they're reducing it because they're also fighting back. What you saw at the summit was the likes of, example, on one of the days on the sidelines, South Africa, India, and Brazil, the leaders of those countries, the presidents, prime ministers, sitting on the sideline and discussing cooperation and opportunities for those three countries to work a lot more together, economically, politically, whatever, but particularly economically, to try and derive more benefit amongst each other. So you're seeing more of that happening. And it's an important point because currently we still trade a significant part of top three trading economic partner is the US to South Africa. So they're still a big trading partner. Secondly, the tariffs is impacting some of our exports. Fortunately, it's not impacting our minerals. So the likes of gold, platinum, and iron ore, those things, we exempted from that. So it's good. But what you are seeing is that there's now what is called that AGOA. The African the trade agreement that we have with America, that is now up for renewal. And there is talk now because, the US has been and particularly Trump has been quite aggressive in terms of its approach to South Africa. There's talk that South Africa may be excluded from that agreement. But to counter that, what South Africa is doing? South Africa is working on more and more expanding and developing their trading partners away from that. So working with the likes of India and Brazil, working with the likes of other Asian countries like China, Japan, Korea, those places, working more and more with the Middle East to ensure that our products, they're calling it the butterfly approach, where you expand your wings and you move on. And you're finding that South Africa is moving more and more, expanding its approach and wanting to trade with more people that want to trade with us and want to give also favorable access to our goods and our services in those countries. One of the targets South Africa has is to say that they want to increase their trade and exports from 2 trillion to 3 trillion by 2030. So it's a big initiative and a focus that over the next 5 years we want to grow our exports. And to do that, we need to broaden our trading partners and the countries we work with. And this summit has allowed South Africa to further improve its relations and further advance some of its opportunities with many of the countries. Now, from a country perspective, the summit did wonders for us in terms of putting us on the map again. Remember, 2010 World Cup, we came on the map. We had we did well, and then we had huge, obviously, challenges around corruption and the like. We're slowly starting to see South Africa turning around internally and also externally. Internally, you're seeing whether it's the Malanga Commission and the like, there's a focus on trying to address corruption. Still a long way to go, but I think baby steps, and they're making slowly, will hopefully make some progress. But also importantly, we've been upgraded in many areas. Our debt and our position, financials, has been upgraded by, we talked about last week, by S&P Global Ratings. Very important point, because our cost of borrowing reduces. And then secondly, and importantly, we off that FATF, which was that grey list, again, allows us and our institutions to trade globally in a lot easier way and less restrictive way to trade as well. But from an internal perspective, and coming to South Africa, what it has shown is that South Africa is a beautiful country to come to. Tourism stands to benefit substantially from this. Remember, you had leaders from numerous countries that came to Johannesburg, but also took the opportunity to go and see other places and other cities while they're here as well. But what it does is that it showcased that South Africa can host phenomenal, huge summits like this. Remember, in 2027, we also got the Cricket World Cup that will be taking place, which is just 2 years down the line. So it shows that we can host big events and the country is welcoming you. And we're seeing tourism pick up this year relative to last year. We've had over a 15% increase in international tourist numbers. And you know where those numbers were coming from? The tourism growth, which is the biggest source, Middle East, a 58% increase from the Middle East. Europe, surprisingly, still strong, 29% increase in Europe. Africa, 28% increase in Africans, tourists coming to the country. And surprisingly, North America, still 20% increase from North America as well. So we're seeing big increasing numbers coming into our country. And I think there's a great opportunity. Durban in particular, we must not underestimate the opportunities that there is for Durban and KZN. We've got a beautiful city that can showcase itself. Just get our beaches sorted out. Get you are seeing it. I mean, if you take a walk or you take a jog these days on the beachfront, there's a lot more visible police presence. There's some eradication of some of the riffraff and the paras and the like that you're seeing there. So I think that helping a bit as well. And you're going to get more of that, I think, especially going into the December and January period as well. You get that right. The beaches, the hotels. Next year, we're getting Club Med in July. There could be continued increase in terms of tourists coming to this city. Our city, relative to the rest of the country, offers value, offers fantastic weather. Our city is much cheaper than Cape Town, I can tell you that much, in terms of whether it's hotels, food, and many other things, a lot more cost effective. So we can attract a lot of travelers coming here, make it and they can use Durban as a base to explore other parts, whether it's the Midlands, whether it's the Drakensberg or the South Coast, North Coast. We've got a lot to explore. We must take advantage of that. We talked about last week the souk as well. That'll, again, as visitors, whether it's local from Gauteng and the like that come, but even some of the internationals that come here, it gives them an opportunity. When they go back, they have something good to talk about us. And word of mouth is the best form of advertisement that you can do. And we need to make sure that we present our best self over especially the next 2 months for the year ahead as well.
Alhamdulillah, Hassan has been marketing KZN quite heavily, and he mentioned the Durban Summer Souk. It's 12 days of entertainment, sporting coverage. Just a point of what Hassan mentioned, that the South African cricket side are the world champions, the South African rugby side are the world champions. the cricket side having thrashed India in the home ground in 2 tests and thrashed them very, very badly. And India is supposed to be a top cricket side. So the World Cup is coming. There's SA20 coming in KZN. So there's a lot of activities, but the biggest attraction will be the Durban Summer Souk, where we have over 360 stalls. We have a lot of entertainment. People can come and spend days in the Durban Summer Souk and enjoy themselves in Durban. I'm sure there's a couple of messages that have come through, Beautiful talk, Mr. Subrati. Well done. Thank you. As usual, then Salam, Mr. Sacoor. MashaAllah, show always. We are stuck when your show is live. May Allah grant you good health, long life, afia. Please, we ask to bring on Brother MP Imran on your show. We like hearing him. Imran is very verbose. Jazakallah khairun, keen listener. Salam, there's something about Sumaya Khan. Yeah, you're really making the show very, very interesting. Love the show. So alhamdulillah, we're getting a lot of positive comments because that's what the show is all about, is to bring topical information and interesting information, breaking news. Salam Sacoor and Sumaya Khan, great talk show this evening. Good to have Subrati. You're a very popular man, Imran. Now I'm going to give Sumaya a chance to wrap up the outcomes of the G20 summit. I know we go past the 10 mark, maybe 10, 15 minutes, but do bear with us. And I'm sure some important stuff that Sumaya needs to continue with Brother Subrati. Sumaya, you can go ahead.
So, in short, G20 exists to coordinate policies amongst the world's major economies. So that's finance, trade, development, and increasingly on cross-border issues like environment, as Brother Imran mentioned, technology, inequality, and global stability. Brother Imran, what does South Africa's presidency mean for the future of African influence in the G20?
Okay. Sumaya, before I answer your question, I'm going to just correct our economist there, because I take my declaration very, very personally. It's not 20 times that Africa was mentioned. It's 82 times. I have the PDF in me, and after our economist mentioned 20, I went and did a search function. If I say AI, then all the aunties will be asking, what is AI? All my mother is listening in. She'll be wanting to know this AI kya hai, So I went and searched it. It's actually 82 times it's mentioned. Africa is mentioned 35 times. African is mentioned 37 times. Africas is mentioned 8 times. And African in the singular is mentioned 2 times. So 82 times. Let's take a bow. This has been a real African declaration. And maybe just a few points I think it's important that because the issue is, how did it impact on us? And I promise you I'll answer your question. And we should talk about the Trump thing. And don't forget about that before our time goes out. We've had an increase of visitors. At the moment, South Africa is sitting at the 3rd most visited country in the continent of Africa, 3rd to Morocco, to Egypt and Morocco. We had 8 million visitors, and we've had 1.6 million in the short term linked directly in 2024 to the G20. Remember, the G20 didn't take place this weekend. It actually started last year. Over 139 formal meetings have taken place, and all these have added to the economy. We had 230 outreach programs that took in place. And those programs, when take place, for example, the local entrepreneurs, the local caterers, the local grocers, the local bakers, the local service providers had to come in and provide. Tourism employment increased from 1.46 million to 1.7 million people. And by 2026, Gauteng tourism is projected to reach 1.7 international arrivals and 4.2 billion into tourism. And this is directly linked to the spin-offs that our economist has tried to exemplify and explain to us relating to the spin-offs of that. So maybe to answer your question was, what is the benefit to Africa? And maybe one important point, because this is I think an omission on our economist's part, and a very crucial point for Africa, and a declaration is called the critical minerals development. In other words, one of the areas, and even we as South Africa, we are seized with, we in Africa and global South countries, we mine and have all the raw materials that's critical for all technology development. In all the technological space, the minerals come from the global South countries and from Africa. Now, our weakness, and I'd like to simplify it over the years, has been, we mine, we take all our gold, we send it overseas, they make the jewelry and we buy it 3 times the price.
Exactly.
We take the diamonds, we send it overseas at a muffat price, they send it back to us as diamond ring and we pay treble and quadruple the price. Similarly, we take all other minerals, we send it away at a fraction, at a minimal price, and we get it, they use it to manufacture all this technology and send it to us. So there's a beneficiation that's taking place that we haven't benefited from. So the G20 declaration identifies this as part of Africa. We now need to address this imbalance in that Africa and Africans and the global south must be the beneficiaries substantially of the mineral wealth we have. What that means in simplifies is that now we must say, if we got that mineral coming, how then what do we need to do? We need to start industrializing our countries. We need to create factories that will now stimulate employment creation. So we take that gold, we melt it, we make gold jewelry, we sell it in South Africa and we import it to elsewhere. So the idea is now we must start, because one of the aspects is dealing with unemployment, industrialization. So I think in terms of how will Africa benefit from it, Sumaya, it's a very Africa-friendly declaration. It's a very Africa-friendly declaration. I think both you and our economists have covered that. I mean, we went into. I don't think so much disaster management was covered. I mean, if you look at disaster, recently, just now we had this rain. I was with Minister Shlabisa at this event on Monday and Tuesday with government and religious leaders. And in his address, he spoke about the rains that we had now, 2 days ago, and the damage and the havoc it's caused in KwaZulu-Natal. And we're finding that now for us, when there's a rain, we're getting these level 5 warnings that keeps coming in, and we get worried. Our gut is working, it is effective, because it's so hard and fast. Now, this is all because of global warming, which is why we want to find clean energy, alternative energy, because there's so much of global warming taking place. But it's resulting in disasters. And poor, underdeveloped countries like Africa don't have the ability to respond to disasters. So part of how we will benefit, inshallah, with the implementation is that disaster management strategies will be implemented, and the developed global north countries have been implored to partner, to work with us, to assist Africa and the global south countries to better respond to disaster. But that is amongst, I thought, maybe the gaps that you all didn't cover, which all contribute to a very Africa-friendly declaration that was adopted.
Being a member of parliament and MP, how did South Africa manage diplomatic tensions such as the United States not attending the summit? There were lots of little conversations carrying on in social media. And so tell us, what's the take on the ground with you?
Losing his marbles in the bargain.
If you follow my status on my WhatsApp or even on my Facebook, on my story, there's an very funny 16-second video. I don't want to. It's one of our local supermarkets that does deliveries. They were quite sharp to catch on to it on a lighter note. They do deliveries of groceries. And I responded and said, I'm honored to announce that the declaration, the presidency has been handed over. So the 16-second video, this grocery company, chain store of ours, one of our very big ones, has a delivery arm. So it shows this delivery vehicle, the scooter, moving, and it comes to a figure of Trump, opens his scooter and gives a page to Trump. So it was delivered. So I'm just informing the listeners. It has been. So maybe the question is, what happened? I mean, let's simplify it, right? People want to wonder what happened now. You see, the declaration is a protocol we follow in Parliament, in protocol. Now, the presidential summit is a summit of the leaders. What took place this weekend in Nazareth, in Johannesburg, is a leaders summit. Now, there's a troika. A troika is 3. We constitute the troika, and maybe that will also answer the Trump question. South Africa is the past president.
Yeah.
America is the future or the next president. And the president after that is UK. So these 3 countries is called the troika. So I'm starting by saying is, We haven't lost hope.
Yeah.
Because what it means for America is whoever's inheriting this, like how earlier when I gave you the indication of India started with the Aadhaar and the DPI, and that team carried through to this extent that I went to India this year to learn from it and bring it. So they carried forward that agenda. The question is whether America would carry forward the declarations here and as a president. Right? We'll come to that. So first I'm saying is there's a troika. Then there's a protocol. The protocol is, because this was a leaders summit, it meant very simple protocol. The president or the highest ranking official deputed by the president in accordance with the dignity of the function of leaders must come and collect it. Now the President Trump said, I'm not coming. Right? You can guess why he didn't come. I'd love to hear create a storm on your studio, Yunus, to
There's
ask
so
the
many
listeners,
stories.
what are the reasons they think Trump didn't come. But here's the thing on a light note, maybe on a light serious note. South Africa took center stage. They didn't share it with anybody.
Alhamdulillah.
I am saying whoever never come, they never boycott South Africa. This is my punchline to South Africans. No one boycotted South Africa. You boycotted the future. You boycotted the next 50 years of growth that will be owned by the global South. For the next 50 years, I prefer that global South is the developing world. We have the consumer market, we have the minerals, we have the HR, we have the labor force, we provide all the labor, the minerals. They have boycotted the future. You were not missed at all. Your presence would have been appreciated, but you were not missed at all. In fact, you highlighted that the world can go on. And earlier you used this fancy term of multilateralism, and I call you to order, Sumaya Khan. Use terms that our people can understand. What is multilateralism? You go back to unilateralism. Unilateralism is one person runs this world. And we had that at one stage. It was the British Empire ran the world. Then you go to two countries running its bilateralism. Where you got two. You had the global north, you had the global south. The north was made up of Europe, USA, they were north, and everybody else, basically the Garib people, the Fakirs, we were the south people. Now you have multilateralism. What is multilateralism? Multilateralism means we're no more bilateral, only global north and global south. Now the economists will tell you, we've got the whole Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, that is entire block in its own. Now you got Africa. That's emerged as another block. In other words, you got the whole Middle East. That's another block. So suddenly, power, decision-making is not what it highlighted here. It's not controlled by one or two powers. That is why the global north and Europe had no choice but to support this declaration, because it's a declaration of growth. They realize that if we don't support global south, we will not go. So the question arises, they were not missed. How did we manage it? And maybe how it has been managed, I think on Tuesday. So what we said, no, the president come, the deputy president of the America should come, or a ministerial rank, or maybe a deputy minister, but at that level of cabinet. Anyone lesser, they said, no, we will send a junior official to come. So we said, no, we will not accept that. What has happened is it is either has been or will be handed by a low-ranking, a junior South African official will hand over the presidency to a junior official from USA. That has either happened on Tuesday or will happen. I stand to correction. Now, what it means, Sumaya, and that's how we managed to manage it. And I think we must give credit where it's due. Our president has led us, Yunus Sacoor, with distinction. I mean, he has been bold enough. We've all heard it. What he said, we will not be bullied. It is not fair that a country is criticized because of the wealth, because of its military might, because you're weak in all of this. I mean, he really led us with distinction. And I don't think any other president would have had the decorum, the calmness, the charisma, and the ability to hold it together as President Trump, as President Ramaphosa did. And the last point is, you might want to ask, and I'll preempt you. You might want to ask, so Imran, is it going to end with USA? Listen, USA is now the new president. They have got this wonderful Africa-friendly declaration. And as part of their responsibility as the president as the secretariat, is to ensure that is advanced. But I've got news, assuming he can do one of three things. They could say, okay, we're going to advance it, which we'll say, okay, great, thank you so much, really appreciate it, alhamdulillah. They could say, no, we're not going to do anything. Or they could do three. The third thing is they can boycott it. But I got news for you, Sumaya, and I'll pause at this point. That is why I mentioned the Troika. The one that comes in 2027 is UK. And alhamdulillah, UK was here. And UK were signatories to this declaration. And it is my wishful thinking, informed thinking, that UK supported it. And when it goes to them with 2027, if Trump boycotts it, inshallah, UK will pick it up and will advance an Africa-friendly declaration.
Well, you explained it quite simple, basic, and to the point. As we wrap up our discussion on the G20 summit, here's something to think about. While the world leaders meet to discuss economies, climate change, and global cooperation and decisions made by these summits, they ripple down to communities like ours. That's it. We're focusing on the smaller person. Well, every policy, every agreement can influence the cost of living, job opportunities. Our brother Hassan Mutala mentioned that, and even the environment we live in. So the question is how can we, even at a local level, stay informed, hold leaders accountable, and ensure that global decisions translate into the real benefits of our communities. So remember, the G20 isn't just about leaders in fancy suits. It's about the impact on everyday lives, and it's up to all of us to think critically, ask questions, and stay engaged. And Brother Imran Subrati, you basically said, stay engaged, be involved, and know what's going on.
Thank you, Sumaya, for an enlightening interview, and Subrati for some very, excellent responses and keeping our listeners simplified and informed of what the G20 summit is all about. We're running out of time, and it's coming up to 10:20. And I think we kept our listeners, out of bed for quite a while. And I think it's high time we close up the show. I want to thank our technician, Dawood Mondley, here for giving us magnificent technical support. Imran Subrati for joining us all the way from Cape Town. He sometimes comes for a short break in Durban, but we grab him before that to come and join us in the studio and share some very important breaking news information. As usual, Hassan Mutala, who provides us up-to-date financial, impact from various summits and, conferences that take place in and around the world. Sumaya Khan for spending the late hours and joining us here and sharing the platform and providing some very, very informative news to our listeners. On a closing note, I want to remind our listeners that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control of this universe. And we should always focus our attention whilst we engage in all these various activities of business and education and, helping people, is to always turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help, because He is the control of the universe. And one of the prerequisites is to obey Allah's commandments as shown to us by Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. And the first thing to be reckoned would be our 5 times salah. So whilst it's late, do make it a point to put your alarm and get up for Fajr. It's quite early these days now. So now 3:30 is the starting time, and 20 to 5 is sunrise. So we have to make sure we get up and perform our Fajr namaz, but also make a lot of du'as for the Ummah. Throughout the world, there's a lot of challenges going on. We speak about the Middle East, we speak about Palestine. There's no end to the atrocities that are taking place there. Although there appears to be a ceasefire, but, the Zionists are just, intransigent, and they're going ahead with their kind of bombarding all over the place. And indeed, in, other parts of the country, Sudan, Kashmir and other parts of the world, our people are suffering. There's a lot of poverty out there. Humanitarian aid is required, and Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam has reported to have said that the best amongst us are those that help others. So we should have that adab. A reminder is for the Durban Summer Souk that's taking place from the 24th of December to the 5th of January. It's a very Islamic fair where namaz takes place. There's salah facilities, but there's a lot of opportunities for a lot of people to engage and utilize their time in these places where we can have our traders supported, and more than 360 traders will be taking place. But we will be interviewing the organization committee of the souk in the near future, explaining what kind of trading opportunities are available. And that now brings us to the end of News in Focus for this evening. We will bring in some topical subjects for next Wednesday, inshallah. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.